Thoughts in the Green Room with your host, Jeff Mays. This week's topic, the changing industry. Recently, I've sat down with a couple other actors and we've been talking about some of the big changes that we feel are occurring in the industry and what that means to us as actors. Obviously, I'm speaking specifically about actors rather than artists in this episode because, well, I don't know how the other industries may be changing for writers or painters. I'm confident that digital is affecting everybody, but I can only speak for actors. And that, of course, will bring me around to this week's challenge. In sitting down at a table with some of my friends, some of my colleagues, we were discussing the idea of our changing industry, as I said. And some of those things that came up were, first off, the digital age. You know, when I started in this industry, new and upcoming indie filmmakers and new directors and film crews were fighting to buy film and get noise reduction equipment so that the clacking of the camera and the film going through wasn't going to affect the sound quality overall and things of this nature. But obviously the digital age, like everything else, has influenced our industry. And we're finding now, or at least I'm seeing now, that more and more up and coming independent film students becoming their own independent directors, are coming out of schools with a team of people they work with already because they've been in school with them for 4 or 5 years, and they're coming out self-equipped. All the equipment they need, everything all amongst their small group of friends because this is what they needed to get through film school. And all of it is digital. It may not be the cutting edge technology of this second, but it's cutting edge enough that it's going to carry them through for a couple of years so they can be able to make film and produce movies, shorts, features, whatever they want, really. And that digital age, of course, in terms of its effect on us, means that there is the potential for a greater amount of content going out, while at the same time potentially washing the market and saturating it too much, which makes it potentially harder for actors and artists to get involved with it, or maybe that's not the right way that I'm looking at it. A saturation of the market means a dampening of its impact, potentially. Another thing that my colleagues brought up with me is the change in auditions. Many auditions are now being self-taped. Costs of auditions are being thrown back to the actor, who are expected to gain their own work, set up their own camera, hire somebody, rent a space, whatever is necessary to make sure they get a tape to a casting agent. Some of the commentary that came out of the conversation was that this is potentially a detriment to our industry because it means casting and actors are getting further apart, that human interaction is being removed, and it's being people are being cast solely on a tape rather than who they may be and what that aspect of the individual may bring to the role, because there's no feel for a person from an in-person meeting. It also potentially means that casting is taking less of a risk because they're sticking to people who they already know, because they can't tell what this new actor is who they haven't seen before would be like on set, based on the fact that all they've got is an audition. Some of the other things that are changing is that the non-union world is now rising and becoming a competing industry with the union. Many non-union productions are offering payment, and some of them in low scale and honorarium format, but many others of some of these established independent artists who are coming out, directors, film crews that are working together as a team, they're able to raise funds through Kickstarter campaigns, through the fact that they don't have to worry about trying to buy film equipment and film itself. So they're able to pay actors and artists contributing to their project with some decent salaries, making it a competitive industry to be in versus many years ago when I first got into it, where there was the union, non-union. Non-union meant you stank and you had no money, period. Union meant you were successful. And of course, these are large stereotypes. So these are some of the major changes that we're seeing. They're not all we talked about, but in the interest of time, I want to bring this around to the big point. Change is something that is a constant, no matter what field, no matter what industry, no matter what you're doing. Change will always exist. Even the age-old adage of I choose not to change by choosing to do nothing, well, that in itself is change from the state that you may have already been in. Change is a constant. It's a given. It doesn't go away. And to that point, the question that I have for my fellow artists that I've had to ask myself recently is, what am I willing to do to move along with this change? How will I change myself to keep in line with the industry and be able to stay competitive against my other colleagues and peers who are also competing for these roles? These are hard questions that need to be answered, and some trial and error is definitely necessary. And this is what brought up the conversation, speaking to my other artist friends about what we're doing to change and how we're helping ourselves to stand out, to remain current, remain castable. And of course, that brings me around to everybody else. No matter what industry you're in, change is inevitable. So the question is, when there is something that's shifting in your day-to-day world, your 9-to-5 job, when they're downsizing or they're expanding, or different people are getting promoted when you're not, what are you doing to manage the change? And there it is, your challenge for the week. Take a look around you at things that have changed in the last month, year, 5 years, and see how you've adapted or what you need to do to adapt. Those are your thoughts from the green room. I am your host, Jeff Mays, and I will see you in 2 weeks.